Hi, hello, and welcome in to the Ball Don't Lie podcast, episode number 132. Thank you so much for being here. We are into the depths of the NFL offseason. And wouldn't you know, right after I finished recording and posting the episode for last week, we actually got comments from the Bengals executive vice president, Katie Blackburn. So we'll break down those comments today. What Trey Hendrickson said as he reacted to what Katie had to say, and kind of where this thing moves going forward. I know that we're all tired of talking about Trey Hendrickson. I hear you. I hear you. I am too, to be honest. But I think I know the direction that this thing is heading. We'll talk a little bit about the NFL draft now, just a couple of weeks away. But I wanted to start with something else. I wanted to start with the end of an era and something and someone who really meant a lot to me in my career. Let's get started. So last Friday was the final show for Mike McConnell. Now, you might be saying, who's Mike McConnell? And if so, that's fair. My audience may be not as familiar with 700 WLW, but Mike McConnell, for the last 50 years, has been in the radio business. For the last 10 or so years, has been the host of the morning show on 700 WLW. He's been in various roles at WLW over the better part of the last 30 or 40 years, and is what we would call a radio icon in this city. He's on the Mount Rushmore of 700 WLW. He is one of the truly all-time greats. I mean, anybody who does something for 50 years in this business, that's insanity. And how awesome for him. And so Mike decided a year or two ago that he was going to be done. He was not going to renew his contract, and he was going to get on with his life, essentially. He's got a couple of grandkids now. He travels a lot anyways, likes to go down to Florida and whatever. He's just at that point where he's decided to be done with radio after 50 years, and who could blame the guy? But to me, it was really special. It was cool. And so we kind of had a week or so of being able to celebrate Mike and just really soak it in that he was going to be done at WLW and done on the morning show. And it was special to me because I was Mike's producer for, I think, 2 years almost, maybe less than that, maybe more. I can't entirely remember. But for the better part of 2 years, I was a producer on Mike's show a few times a week. Now, there was a stretch of time where I was his producer every day. There was a stretch of time where I was his producer 2 days a week. But I remember being so excited about the opportunity to work with Mike McConnell. Like, I don't want to get up at 4 o'clock in the morning. I don't want to go and have to use my brain at that point. I hated the schedule, and I still hate the schedule. And if, Lord willing, I'll never go back to it. But the idea of working with Mike kind of made it all worth it. And so for 2 years, I got to watch one of the all-time greats. I got to work with one of the all-time greats. I got to learn one of the all-time greats. And I was able to do it both in our old studios before we moved to our new, really nice studios now that iHeart built for us. And I was able to kind of watch him. So inside baseball here. In our old studios, we had a window, a producer from my studio through the window. I could see the talk studio. I could see the town. I could see Mike, anybody who was in there, whatever I could see. In our new studios, we don't have that. And I don't know why. It's asinine. It's silly. We had cameras, but getting people to use the cameras and getting it all in the same system was a bit of a challenge. So it not as as smooth, I guess you could say. But for a while, I got to just watch Mike all the time. I know that might sound creepy to some people, but the way he handled himself between breaks and what he would do and the research and just everything, getting to see and work with Mike was just a treat, man. And I learned so much from him, from watching him, from talking to him, from listening to him. And those were some of the more enjoyable years of my career, even though I was his producer throughout all of COVID. I was his producer throughout the move to a brand new studio. I was his producer when the Bengals went to the Super Bowl and that entire run. And I remember early on having a conversation with Mike, and he was kind of asking me like what I wanted to do and what my goals were and all that stuff. And I had talked to him about sports, and it's the direction that I want to go. And I remember Mike telling me, he said, "You have no idea what it's like in this city when the Bengals are good." He said, "Everybody wants to talk about the Reds, but when the Bengals are good, this city is orange and black. It is crazy." And I remember thinking about that. I'm like, man, I hope I get to experience that. And the next year it happened. Like just a few months later, it happened. And it was so cool to experience that with Mike, and so many countless memories of, you know, just, mornings when there was one time I slept through my alarm and I was late, and I'm driving up 71 North, and I'm just listening to McConnell just rip my ass across the station because I was late. Which I think that was the only time that ever happened. There was one other time. Uh, I was staying in the hotel next door because we had terrible weather. And if there's one thing you got to know about the morning show, that is the show you cannot miss. You cannot be late for. There's nobody there to save your ass. Like you can't screw it up, basically. And I screwed it up once or twice, several times, you could say. But I remember just so many great memories. Seriously, so many great memories in such a short period of time. At one point, he started buying us breakfast every Wednesday from the deli downstairs, and I remember looking forward to that so much. I was willing to pick up a Wednesday shift, or willing to stick around. Sometimes I'd come in early to see if I could get in on it. Just an awesome dude, man. Awesome dude, and a true legend in this business. I'm so thankful to work with him, for him, be around him. And so congrats to my guy, Mike. It was awesome to see so many people there to celebrate him on Friday. And best of luck. I hope you enjoy the grandkids and the traveling, and sleeping in, because Lord knows you've earned the right to sleep in a little bit. So best of luck to you, Mikey. And thank you um, for all that you did for me, and all that you taught me, and all the experience that you gave me. That really means a lot to me. What else do we have coming up on the show today? Well, I'm going to briefly address the Cincinnati Reds, who are 4-7 at the time of this recording, coming off of an incredible performance by Hunter Green. I don't know if I've said this on this podcast. Hunter Green is my favorite Reds player. I love that guy. The way he carries himself, the way he has been so active in the community, obviously his performance, the deal he took to stay here in Cincinnati for the long term is ridiculous. He's like the 82nd highest paid starting pitcher in Major League Baseball. He's just a monster and like a good dude. And yeah, Ellie's flashy, and McLean is kind of this gritty type of player. And there's a lot of likable guys on the team. Well, there's a couple likable guys on the team. Hunter Green for me is my favorite Red. My favorite Red they've had in a long, long time. So fun to watch him. I don't want to get too bogged down in Reds talk, because that's not what this is about. I don't want it to be about this. And I talk about the Reds every day throughout the summer, so I don't want to talk about them on here too. But I will say this. I'm at the point with the Reds where I am questioning whether or not Nick Krall in the baseball operations department has the ability to build this team into a winner with the obstacles that come with it. Because in Cincinnati, there is a mindset by ownership not to spend as much money as possible. Everything that they do is based off of money. They are running a business. They are trying to make money. They are trying to win, but they are trying to win at minimal cost. Not the minimum cost, but minimal cost. And because of that, it makes Nick Krall, the president of baseball operations, and Brad Metter, the GM, it makes their jobs harder. And I don't know if those guys really have the ability to do what's necessary to build it with those constraints in place. There are other small market teams who get more with less and have done more with less. The Brewers are always in contention. I would do anything to be as competitive as the Brewers have been for the last 20 years. The Cardinals, for the better part of 30 years, were a small market team that was excellent at drafting and developing and keeping talent. The Reds should strive to be what the Cardinals have been for the better part of the last 30 years. The Arizona Diamondbacks were able to turn their market into, or their team into, a World Series contender. They were in the World Series just a couple of years ago, and they are more of a small market team. Baseball is broken. The rules of baseball are broken. Salary caps, money, large markets, small markets. It's broken. All right, and it's not going to be fixed for a while. So when you look at the system as it's currently constructed, and you look at the way the Reds choose to do business, that makes it really hard on baseball ops to be able to build a team into a consistent winner. And I am at the point now where I fear that the people in place in baseball ops do not have what it takes to overcome those self-installed obstacles by ownership to build the team into a winner. It's about getting more with less. And I don't know if they have the ability to do that. The Reds have been a very, very frustrating watch to start the season, to say the least. I made a TikTok about this. I did the extra inning show on 700 WLW. I recommend you go check it out. It's 7 minutes, kind of my full thoughts on the Reds, including this point that I'm making right now. Check it out on TikTok. Check it out on Twitter. I put it on Instagram Reel, just a clip of it as well. Go follow me on all those three, please. If you want more Reds conversation, you can find it there and every day on our show on ESPN 1530. What else do I have today? Instagram questions. We're going to get to Instagram questions. I used to do this like once a month, once every couple months when I first started the Ball Don't Lie podcast, where I invite you over to my Instagram story, submit your questions, and I'll answer them. So looking forward to answering those at the end of the show. But first, I do want to have the Bengals conversation quickly about Trey Hendrickson, Katie Blackburn, and so on. So when we left, or when I finished this up last week, the annual meetings were underway with the Bengals, and there was still a lot of uncertainty about the future of Trey Hendrickson, and we knew that at some point Katie Blackburn would be talking. Now, she doesn't talk very often, and the Bengals are not good at this. They're not good at communication. They've never been good at communication. When it comes to PR and stuff like this, they speak so infrequently that it's often hard to figure out tone. And when you don't let people, or when the Bengals often don't want video or audio of these conversations coming out. And so when you only post quotes, it makes it difficult to derive tone and context. And that's what happened here with Katie Blackburn. Now, if you don't know, Katie Blackburn, the executive vice president of the Cincinnati Bengals, she is the daughter of Mike Brown, the granddaughter of Paul Brown, and she is one of the more powerful people in football. I think I said this last week. Anyways, she spoke with the media, and there is a lot going on with the Bengals. There's a stadium lease deal going on. The Jamar and T deals are done for sure. But there's just been a lot going on at this point in the time of the Bengals franchise. And so it's important to be able to hear from Katie. And because the Bengals do this so infrequently, they are not good at it. And when you don't let people use video, you don't let people use audio, it's easy for your words to be misconstrued. And I wish the Bengals were better at this, because if they were to be more upfront, more understanding, more open, more transparent, they would be able to paint a clearer picture of who they are and the message they are trying to convey. But when you do it rarely and you don't let full access happen, you turn things into stories that are bigger than they really are. Okay, so Katie meets with the media in Palm Beach, or wherever they were at the annual meeting in the NFL annual meetings. And she was, of course, asked about Trey Hendrickson. So we've talked about the big three this entire offseason. Jamar and T are done. Mike Gesicki is done. Burrow is already done. The other one is Trey Hendrickson, the NFL sack leader a year ago, 17 and a half sacks each of the last two seasons. And this is the quote from Katie Blackburn to the Cincinnati Enquirer and to the media that was there. Quote, "As you're trying to put all these pieces together, you have certain limitations eventually. So he seemed to feel strongly about it, about the trade request. So he seemed to feel strongly about it and thought the strength of interest out there was going to be at a certain level. And so we said that it would be okay to at least explore. And so we don't do that all the time, but in this case, we felt like it was the right thing to do, case by case basis every time. And he's still a Bengal, so we'll see. It's just something that we'll keep working through. So here's Katie kind of telling us what we already know, which is Trey Hendrickson thought that the value he could get in exchange in the trade market would be so good, so important, so um, high, I guess, that the Bengals wouldn't have a choice but to move on from him. But that didn't happen. There were no first round picks offered to Trey Hendrickson or offered to the Bengals for Trey Hendrickson. And it was kind of conveyed to the Bengals that we will get at least a first round pick in exchange for Trey. So to me, that's point number one about how the rest of the league views Trey Hendrickson, not as a number one type of player, not worthy of a number one pick. Also, they would have to give him a contract extension. That also drives his value down. So he was wrong about that. And that has hurt him when it comes to the leverage and negotiations. He also, Katie Blackburn went on to say this, and this is the quote that got a lot of people riled up. Quote, I think he should be happy at certain rates that maybe he doesn't think he'd be happy at. I think some of it is on him to be happy at some point. And if he's not, that's what holds it up sometimes. So, it takes him to say yes to something. And also, we have all the respect in the world for him. He's been a great player. We're happy to have him. And so maybe we'll find a way to get something to work. We're just going to see where it goes. I'd be lying if I said I knew exactly what was going to happen. So we'll just have to see how it all plays out. Katie Blackburn. Now, people got big mad about this. People were saying, basically saying Katie is like, well, it's up to Trey to be happy. You got to be happy with this. We're going to be happy with lowballing you or whatever. People tried to put words in Katie's mouth. And how it was conveyed to me was that Katie was trying to say that he has to decide what makes him happy. Does he want to stay here and make a little bit more money? Or does he want to go somewhere else and try to get a mega deal done? But we're not going to do that until next year. So he has to decide eventually what makes him happy. Is it being here and playing football in Cincinnati, or is it trying to go and make as much money as you can before you retire? It's kind of the way it was supposed to be portrayed, but really it ultimately came off as, well, if he's not happy with what we're giving him, he's never going to be happy. And I could see both sides of that for sure. But here's the thing that's different is Trey Hendrickson immediately went on the Pat McAfee show afterwards. And I'm curious to know what you think about the Pat McAfee show. I like Pat. I think Pat's entertaining. His show is meant to be entertaining and more about entertaining than informative. There's not a lot of journalistic aspects at practice with some of this. And I appreciate the transparency of a lot of the athletes that are on there, but also there are some questions and some moments that should be asked and should be explored that often aren't. And also he pays his guests a lot of money. Like Aaron Rodgers makes six figures to go on that show. I get why, but also, come on. So anyways, Trey, who claims to be this God-fearing, humble man, family first, team guy, lead from the front type of dude, immediately goes on the Pat McAfee show. Again, this is the second time he's been on to talk about his contract negotiations. My question is, why or how is it beneficial to anyone to negotiate through the media? It hurt the Bengals earlier this year when Duke Tobin was talking about Jamar Chase being the highest paid non-quarterback in the NFL. Joe Burrow did it openly in Radio Row at the Super Bowl on behalf of Trey and T and Jamar and even Mike Gesicki. Um, and now Trey did it on Radio Row, and Trey did it again on the Pat McAfee show, and basically said that he thought it was an April Fool's joke, is what he thought. And that the communication with the Bengals has been extremely poor. It's been spotty. My response to that for Trey would be, have you not been aware of the Cincinnati Bengals for the last 58 years? They have been bad at communication at all times. So I'm not using that as an excuse. Yes, they need to get better at it, but you've known this. You've negotiated 2-3 contracts with them now. So you should know that their communication sucks. Trey also went on to say that the Bengals told him if he continued the level of production that we had seen from him, they would take care of him and give him a new deal. They would begin negotiating a new deal. And so that was portrayed by Trey on the Pat McAfee show as if the Bengals said they were going to do something and then they didn't. Well, I've been told that they have offered him multi-year deals. And I've been told that the money doesn't quite add up to what he wants. And that's part of negotiations. I think the Bengals did exactly what they told Trey they were going to do. I think they said, hey, listen, you keep playing like this, we would like to come back to the table. We'll give you another bump in salary, and we'll try to keep you here. Trey says he wants a long-term deal. He says he wants to know where his family's going to be and how he's going to raise them. Buddy, you're in the National Football League. That also cannot be used as an excuse. You never know what's going to happen any given day in the NFL. So anyways, he says the Bengals said they were going to take care of me, and then they haven't. So if the Bengals said we are going to reward you and we want to come back to the table and try to get a contract negotiation done with you if you continue to play this well, and then they did, and they came to the table and they said, all right, here's what we're willing to do. We'll give you 2 years at $27.5 million. That would be a bump in pay for 2 years, long term. You know where you're going to be. You're going to be making over $50 million. You'll be in the top 5 paid defensive ends in the NFL. Here's what we can offer you. Let's just say that's the case. And Trey hasn't accepted that. Why? If you're this God-fearing, humble person, lead from the front type of guy, where you care about winning more than anything else, why? Why not take it? That's my question. Why not take it? Is it because you want $30 to $35 million? Because I'm telling you, it's not going to happen. And if you wanted that much money that badly, why did you accept the previous offers with the Bengals? You're sneaking up on $80 million over the course of 5 years with this organization who already gave you a raise twice and was the team that gave you a chance in free agency with a ton of money to begin with. You know how they negotiate deals, and yet you chose to sign an extension the first time. You know, here's the other thing about Trey Hendrickson. I know that Joe Burrow, I know that Joe Burrow vouched for him at Radio Row, and I understand why. You don't want to leave anybody out, and Trey has been a productive player in the NFL. But I don't know that he would be missed in the locker room that much. How many 4-time Pro Bowlers are not team captains? Trey said on Pat McAfee that now that Sam Hubbard's gone, I'm ready to take on that role as a leader. Why didn't you take that on before? You don't have to wait for Sam Hubbard to be a leader. Trey kind of rocks to the beat of his own drum. He strikes me as a guy who struggles to relate to the rest of his teammates. He kind of does his own thing. And that's fine. There are multiple personalities across the NFL and certainly in NFL locker rooms. But don't go out there acting like you're this great guy who cares so deeply about his team and his teammates in this city. And, you know, I just want to be paid fairly and blah, 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 blah. I don't know that he'd be missed that much in the locker room. So what are the options? The options are, here's what I think is going to happen. I think this is going to get ugly. I think Trey is going to do exactly what Jamar Chase did a year ago, which is he's going to sit out all of training camp and show up in week 1, play on his deal, and then leave in free agency. That's what I think is going to happen next year. What I think the Bengals would like to happen is to get him on a 2-year deal between 25 and $28 million. I don't think he's going to accept that. I think he thinks that he can go out, have another great season, get into free agency, and sign a deal for upwards of $30 million. The other option is in a couple of weeks when the draft is coming up to trade him. We'll see what happens with the picks that you get, but maybe somebody gets desperate because they missed on the guy that they wanted, and they have a couple of extra picks. The Bengals have 6 picks, and they have more than 6 needs. Trey Hendrickson could be a viable trade candidate, especially if somebody like Detroit, who has, I think, the 29th pick in the draft, would say, you know what? Here, we'll give you the 29th. You give us Trey Hendrickson. We'll throw in a 5th or a 6th or whatever it be. If that's the case, if you're the Bengals, I don't know how you say no to that. I don't think he will be traded. I don't think they will sign an extension. And I don't think he will participate in training camp. But because of all the stuff I just said about the locker room, I don't think Trey, and I don't think his absence in training camp will be nearly as big of a deal as the Jamar Chase deal was. That's my thoughts. All right. What about Instagram questions? You can follow me on Instagram at Autyelmore, AUTYELMORE. And I'll try to do this a little bit more frequently, but I'll put up on my story a chance for you to ask some questions, and I'll try to answer them the best that I can. So here's what we got so far. We'll do let's do 8 of these. Let's do 8 of these questions. All right. Final prediction. This comes final prediction for the win-loss record for the Reds. I'm going to say like 79-83. That's my final prediction. Who should the Bengals take in the draft? Good question. I know I keep saying we're going to talk about the draft, and then I don't. The Bengals should draft the best available defensive player. If it's a corner, if it's a lineman, if it's a linebacker, if it's a safety, doesn't matter. Draft the best available defensive player. That's what I think. What is a must-win series for the Reds coming up? Like every series. Basically every series that they play. I'm serious. Like every series, the rest of the month, they play Colorado, they play Pittsburgh, they play Miami, they play St. Louis. They play teams that they should beat. All of those are must-win series. This series against San Francisco that's happening right now, to me, is a must-win series. So they have a lot of must-win series if they want to be taken seriously moving forward. All right, let's see what else we got here. Can the Reds ever regain Cincy as a baseball town as long as Joe Burrow is here? That's a good question. I think there might be more distrust in the Reds organization than there is in the Bengals right now, which is kind of crazy to say. And I could be off base on that. But with the way Joe owns this city and owns this region, I think he owns the region more than the Reds own the region because a lot of people have kind of given up on the Reds. I think they can, but they would have to, like the Bengals did a couple of years ago, make a deep playoff run. And I just don't see that happening anytime soon. Why are we not talking about conference realignment playing a factor in college basketball? Well, if you know me, you know I'm not a college basketball expert. But the easy answer to this would be, for me, that everybody would much rather complain about NIL and the state of NIL and athletics in college basketball and money and all that and the portal than they would complain about conference realignment. I also don't know that much about conference realignment in college basketball and how much it's affecting it. So I might be the wrong guy to ask for that. Is number 37 going to be an all-star once he's back from injury? That's referring to Tyler Stevenson. Lord, I hope so. But, you know, Jose Trevino has been pretty good. He's been good at the plate. He's been good behind the plate. I think he's been really helpful to the starting pitchers. He's not playing like an all-star, but he is hitting over 300 right now, which is unheard of in today's Major League Baseball and certainly unheard of on the Reds' current roster. I don't know that Tyler Stevenson is going to play like a all-star when he comes back from injury. I'm worried about that injury. Breaking Bad or Dexter? I've watched both Breaking Bad and a landslide. Breaking Bad in an absolute landslide. All right, last one. This comes from Mike. Is it wrong to say that I don't want the Bengals playing overseas? No, it's not wrong to say that. I agree with you. I don't want them playing over there. I don't want to go over to like Madrid in the middle of November. Who would want to do that? No, I think it's good for the brand. I think it's good for the organization. I think it's good for a lot of things. I don't think it's good for the actual product on the field. And that's what I care about more than anything else. And so because of that, I'm always like anti they go to London. I'm anti they go to Madrid. I'm anti they go to Mexico City, whatever it might be. I've just never really been a big fan of that. So no, you're not wrong for saying that because if you're like me, Mike, you want to win, and winning is the most important thing. And playing some game in Madrid is not really conducive to winning. And maybe that's just an excuse, but I'm just not a fan. I'm also not somebody who has a bunch of money to go to Madrid to watch them play. And if I did, I'd probably feel differently. That's part of it as well. All right. Thank you so much for listening to episode number 132 of the Ball Don't Lie podcast. I don't know. I don't know if I made any sense today whatsoever. I really don't. But we'll try to talk some draft moving forward. I know I keep saying that. I'm kind of dreading it, to be honest. I'm dreading getting all in on the draft because it can feel overwhelming at times. The amount of players and this, that, and the other, it's just not great. Not always great. So, anyways, we'll get into a little bit. We'll try to crowdsource some information and figure some stuff out when it comes to the draft. All right. Thank you so much for listening. If you liked what you heard, you can hear me weekdays 12 to 3 on ESPN 1530. I co-host a show over there. It's called Cincy 360 with Tony Pike. You can listen anywhere on the iHeartRadio app, much like you can find this podcast anywhere, including the iHeartRadio app. If you're listening on Apple or Spotify or whatever it might be, please give the podcast a 5-star rating, like it, subscribe to it, thumbs up it, send it to a friend, whatever it might be. That really does help me, and I would appreciate it if you did that. Again, you can follow me on anything and everything at Autyelmore, AUTYELMORE. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Ball Don't Lie podcast, and as always, have fun, be safe, go Bucks.